And now your host, Richard Thomas.
Hello, and welcome to It's a Miracle. You know, there are many definitions for the word miracle, but for this show, we've decided to focus on just one: beating all the odds. In each of our stories, a person is faced with a situation that is so daunting, so beyond the realm of possibility, that to overcome it would require a miracle. We begin with what one paramedic has described as the most classic struggle between life and death that he's ever witnessed. The annual Ridge to River Relay attracts thousands of spectators and participants to Wenatchee, Washington every spring.
Hey guys, I want to do some canoeing before it gets dark, so yeah.
In April of 2000, Reuben Andrews, Maria Danzer, and Carly Boom arrived with some other friends to join in on the fun.
It was supposed to be a stage race. There was like a ski and a run and a bicycle canoe. I was real excited to I was going to do the biking and part of the canoe.
We had a lot of fun, and we were talking and joking. Since we had lots of time, we thought we'd go canoeing because it would be fun.
Oh my gosh, it would be so much fun, Carly. You're going to love it. What do I have?
At first, Carly hesitated. She had little experience canoeing, but in the end, she decided to give it a try.
You'll love it.
Since Carly didn't have as much experience, she was in the middle, and I'd had a little bit more than Reuben, so I was in the back. The river was really high, so in some ways it made going down easier, and in some ways it made the current a lot stronger.
And the strong current soon began to cause problems.
We fell over and tipped the canoe, so then we had to swim to a little sandbar.
I was just amazed how cold it was and how fast the water really was when you're not in the boat. It was kind of a startling situation.
After their spill, Carly was reluctant to get back into the canoe. But with no other way to shore, the group once again headed downstream.
When we got about halfway around the corner, we could see a bridge up ahead with the pylon right in the middle, right where we were in the river. When we started paddling towards shore, it didn't work. It just turned the canoe.
When we hit the pillar, I tried to push off, thinking we'd just like bounce off. And as soon as I touched it, I just heard a big bang. It was a canoe just collapsing and wrapping around the pillar.
Me and Reuben got sucked out the sides, but since Carly was right there against the pylon, it just trapped her in there.
In the next instant, the tremendous force of the river wrapped the canoe around the bridge pylon and pulled the young girl under.
Where's Carly? Reuben, where's Carly? She's still trapped in the canoe.
I'll go get help.
I just had a moment there where I realized Carly was still in there. I just kind of sat there going, oh my God.
Mike Harum, a Chelan County Sheriff rescue instructor, was conducting a training session upriver from the accident.
Chelan Station to Water Rescue, please come in.
The dispatch had given us a call that a boat had capsized in the area of the Sleepy Hollow Bridge and was trapped against the pillar. We got there within about a minute or so. We actually could see the person under the water there. There was a hand between the ridge of the boat and the pillar. It was trapped.
But reaching her would be extremely dangerous.
Because of the high water, the currents will actually pull you into the pillar and potentially could sink the boat. So you're kind of at the mercy of the water.
Carly's friends watched from shore as Mike made another attempt to get within reach of the canoe.
I saw them trying to pull on the canoe, but the current was so strong it had to just go by. They could slow down for them to try pulling on it, but they couldn't stop.
It was real frustrating. When you're watching a real close friend of yours not knowing if they're going to make it, it was just gut-wrenching, you know, and you don't really know what to think.
As precious minutes ticked by, Mike's attempts to free Carly continued to fail.
We were kind of frantic at that point because, you know, what are we going to do now?
We're going to have to get a winch line and get a hold of that.
So I went to the shore and contacted the fire department and explained that I would need the winch to pull the boat up. I think most everybody at that point felt that it was more of a recovery than a rescue.
Just as they'd given up hope, paramedic Sean Ballard arrived on the scene.
The person had been in the water at least 20 minutes at that point in time. And, you know, after 10 or 15 minutes, you know, he's pretty much lost hope. But in cold water, we know if the body temperature drops fast enough, that the person has a longer time.
Okay, Mike, this cold water is not a recovery. We need to keep going.
He said, if you can get this person out by 30 minutes after, we still have a chance.
That gave the rescue team less than 15 minutes to pull Carly from the water. For now, all Sean and his partner, Carla Render, could do was watch helplessly.
As I was standing out there watching everything, my mind kind of went to the past. I have a sister that was 17, and she drowned in the Salmon River in Idaho. It just made me really want to give her a chance. I didn't want any siblings that she had to have to feel what I felt. I didn't want her parents to feel that. I just want a chance to give her a chance. That's all I could think over and over and over.
Sheriff's office has a boat down there. We're going to drop the winch down underneath the guardrail.
As everyone on shore held their breath, Mike Harum and his crew struggled to set Carly free.
We got the cable down over the side and hooked it to the boat.
They got on the radio and they started pulling with the winch. And we'd given them till 30 minutes after, about 3:30. When I looked down at my watch, it was 28 minutes after, and I thought, okay, you know, we're going to make it. So they started pulling, and all of a sudden the cable ripped through the boat. And the boat went right back around the pillar. And I was thinking, you know, we're still within our time limit, but all of a sudden they were back to ground zero. They started to pull with the winch, and then they rammed the boat up against it and started pushing with the boat at the same time. In the combination of those two, we saw the nose start creeping out of the water.
It was just incredible. I think the water was running like 8,000 gallons per second. So I just again pushed as hard as I could.
The extra effort paid off as Carly finally dislodged from the pillar and floated downstream to another rescue boat. But by the time they arrived on shore, paramedic Sean Ballard feared they were too late.
She was limp and cold, cyanotic, you know, which is that kind of bluish look people get, and just pale as a ghost. It's the look like this person's dead.
Although they knew the odds were stacked against them, Sean and Carla Render moved into action.
Another strap. Right here.
I remember thinking she's tall like my sister is tall. And then the next thing I thought was, she's not going to die today. I'm not letting her die.
Okay, Terry, let's start compressions. So we hooked up warm IV fluids on her and started seeing what we had. No breathing, no signs of life. Basically, her heart had stopped. There was no electrical activity, nothing. Okay, we got VF. We're gonna need a shocker here, guys. And then we gave her some electricity of our own. And after that, all of a sudden, we saw a very, very slow complex on her heart monitor. Hey, we got something. And we thought, gosh, we've got a chance. Something's there.
The They immediately reported the change in Carly's condition to emergency room physician Dr. Mark Shipman, who was standing by at Central Washington Hospital.
With that teenage drowning victim I called you about earlier.
They're calling us, telling us they have a patient. They don't have a victim.
We're into a sinus rhythm now with a very weak pulse.
And incredibly, they have a patient who has a pulse.
But even a pulse was no guarantee that Carly would survive.
She was 72 degrees when we got to the emergency room. You know, when we see somebody that's severely hypothermic, you know, they're in the 80s. So to see somebody who's at 72 degrees, I mean, it's unheard of. Here we go, 1, 2, 3, over we go. All right.
Dr. Shipman and his team were equally amazed by the condition of the young woman placed in their care.
I have never seen anybody survive an incident like this. And I'm there looking at a little girl who's dead, but now she's living again, and I'm sorry, maybe we can save her.
I've got a core temperature of 72.
The first challenge for the medical team was to warm Carly's blood and raise her temperature internally. But they lacked the proper equipment, a heart-lung machine.
When you have one of those machines, you can effectively warm up their own blood. When you warm a patient up rapidly from the outside, they die, and you can't resuscitate them.
We have a dialysis machine coming.
The medical team would have to improvise.
It turns out that on a dialysis machine, you can also take somebody's blood and heat it up.
The gamble paid off, but just as quickly, Carly's heart stopped beating again.
Can you start CPR, please?
Okay, we've got no pulse.
We need to start?
Good.
Okay, start.
All right, we got VF.
Let's shock her.
The first thing we try is defibrillation, even though we know that in hypothermic victims, many times it just doesn't work.
Up there!
And lo and behold, it works. First time, she's got a pulse again. That happened twice.
You got that catheter in her bladder. This was one of the most classic struggles of life and death I've ever seen. It was just constantly the Grim Reaper, you know, pulling at her feet, you know, and the doctor's pulling her hands. And it was just amazing to watch.
While the heroic efforts of the doctors and nurses continued, 200 miles away in Tenino, Washington, Barbara and Phil Boom received the phone call every parent dreads.
Hello? I got a phone call from a deputy sheriff, and he just said that Carly was in a bad accident and that we should come over as soon as possible.
I couldn't even picture the scene. I just knew that my daughter was in trouble. I was crying, I was shaking. We were quiet most of the time. We had our own thoughts.
As we were driving along, I started doing a lot of praying, and I felt the overwhelming urge to thank God for the wonderful 16 years that He had given us with her.
By the time the Booms arrived at the hospital, Carly's condition had stabilized, but the prognosis was not good.
When we arrived in the hospital, I began to feel really numb because I didn't know what to expect, and I was afraid to hear.
First of all, she is holding her own.
As I was listening to the doctors report one bad bit of news after another, I actually began feeling faint. They told us there was kidney failure, liver damage, and the neurologist told us that 45 minutes without oxygen makes the brain pretty damaged.
They want you to stay outside the room for now. And
seeing Carly like that was really hard to fathom, because just 12 hours earlier she was alive and joking and friendly and moving all over the place. And here she was just absolutely still. All I knew is I wanted to hold her hand and talk to her and try to reassure her that Mom and Dad were there and we were going to do everything we could for her.
As I looked at my daughter, my mother's heart just broke. It was a very helpless feeling. There was absolutely nothing I could do. She was not stable enough for them to even predict that she would be alive in the morning.
There was long-term doubts that Carly would ever be anywhere near herself. It was all dire predictions, and there was a lot of doubt.
Only time would tell if the young daughter they knew still lived inside her body. Meanwhile, Carly was kept heavily sedated to allow her brain time to heal.
Well, we're still getting reactive pupils. Marcia, let's go ahead and turn off her propofol.
And 3 days later, everyone held their breath as the neurologist brought Carly out of her deep sleep.
I was there when she opened her eyes for the first time.
Doctor, look. Carly, can you hear me? Carly.
And at one point, the neurologist said, "Can you see your mother, Carly?" And Carly lifted up her hand and waved.
Hi, sweetie.
It was this huge gleam of hope. She's injured, but her brain is functioning. She recognizes me, she can move. There's a spark there.
I was ecstatic. There's no two ways about it. I was just floating on cloud 9. I just knew that she was going to do better than they had thought that she may.
The days that followed confirmed everyone's faith, and after 3 weeks of intensive care, Carly was transported to Seattle Children's Hospital for rehabilitation.
I knew it was going to be a lot of work. She had physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. She could not walk.
She began taking little steps and then longer steps, and then fairly soon after that on walking on her own.
Good. Keep it up. That's good. All right.
She surprises us every single day with her recovery and her goals for life.
Doing okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's put the resistance in.
The miracle of her recovery and just coming back to life. It's a real resurrection story.
I think that I actually survived my accident was very miraculous. It makes me appreciate life a little more, and I feel like I'm improving every day.
Carly, on behalf of Ridge to River, we welcome you, and you'll always be part of this race from now until eternity. Thank you very much.
With her every success, Carly's miraculous story continues to touch everyone involved.
I think the main thing for me is it has brought some peace to my heart over my sister's death, which is why I think I was privileged enough to be a part of all of it, because that was what I needed to have. She actually gave a gift back to me.
My experience has been many, many rescues on the river. I've never seen anybody go through what Carly has gone through and live.
I can only affect the things that are in the scientific realm. But I also am first to admit that there's more to Carly's miraculous survival than just science.
We believe that Carly has such a strong will. She is so tough and so resilient that there was a spark of life in her that could not be extinguished.
I'd become closer to God, so maybe that's why he saved my life. Being alive really is miraculous.